Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox, on what is a rather grey, overcast, miserable and moist morning. But I do hope to bring a bit of sunshine into everybody's lives. I do like to start the day and indeed the week with a nice uplifting story. And I think I have the perfect one to start the day. We've got lots of stories. It's going to be a bit of hard work trying to get through them all, but I shall try my best. Now, Alex Neil, erstwhile of the SNP, he retired, but he's still given great stock of his opinion. People still respect what he has to say within the party. Has said that Humza Yousaf, if he's brave, can turn around the fortunes of the party and do quite well at the general election. He said, however, it will need a decision, and it's not one, of course, that I didn't think personally Humza Yousaf can make. He needs to fire Shona Robinson and abandon her budget, and then bring in Kate Forbes as not just the party's deputy leader, but also the finance secretary, and get her to do another budget. I don't think he's got the balls for that. I don't think he's capable of doing it. And I also think that Kate Forbes has her eyes on a completely different job. His. But we'll take a look at what Alex Neil is saying and seeing whether it is a viable option, which I think it is, and what is likely to happen over the next few weeks. Here goes. Now, before we get into it, I've had a few comments in the comments section saying that people are getting bumped out of subscriptions by YouTube again. So do please check that you're still subscribed. And if you're one of the regulars who's yet to subscribe, please do subscribe. And if you're a new person, please subscribe and join us in over 9,000 of us now who are regular seekers of the truth and who want to cut through all the spin and BS of the SNP to get to the heart of the matter. Anyway, Humza Yousaf is urged to rewrite the budget and to bring Kate Forbes into cabinet or face general election disaster. Well, I think it's already too late. I think the disaster is coming down the line. I think the very best he can hope for is to make the disaster less serious. I think the SNP are beyond the point of no return. I think Labour are basically they've got too much momentum. They are just rolling forward like a steamroller, unstoppable. And that Anna Sawar will be sort of whisked in as having the largest party in Scotland. Not bad from the last election where he had one seat. He's now doubled it to a whole 2 seats. But I think after the next general election, Scotland should have a predominantly Labour set of MPs at Westminster. The irony, of course, is that as they take all these SNP seats, and a lot of people who vote SNP are switching to Labour, I feel it will also improve the fortunes of the Conservatives, because where Conservatives are in second place, a few switching to Labour from SNP, also switching from SNP to Greens or SNP to Labour, will give the Tories maybe an extra couple of seats, and you could. And we looked at this, I think it was on Saturday, we looked at this. You could actually be in a position where there are more Conservative MPs in Scotland than SNP MPs. All it takes is a little bit of tactical voting. So it's something that could utterly obliterate the party. And of course it would mean that on that Friday morning, Humza Yousaf would be gone. He would no longer be the leader. And everybody wins. Anyway, Alex Neil said the SNP is losing ground to Labour, but reckons the under-fire First Minister can still turn his party's fortunes around. I think at the very least, the very best, is he can reduce the loss. But I think it's a wise move for him to fire Shona Robinson, regardless of who he's going to replace her with. If it is, we can get Kate Forbes in, all to the better. But simply because she is a moron. She just doesn't understand what's going on. She doesn't understand how taxes work, how an economy works. And her budget deliberately targeted the most vulnerable in society. And I think it can almost be described as a budget of evil. Because you're looking at, where do we need to make cuts? Can we make cuts in all the bits that don't matter? Or should we make cuts in the bits that really matter to the vulnerable in society? And they went with, let's go and target the vulnerable. There's no humanity there, is there? And then people are seeing it, and SNP voters are seeing it, and that's going to be driving a lot of SNP voters away as well. They really need to get rid of the idiots out of that party. Unfortunately, you wouldn't have many left, would you? Anyway, Humza Yousaf needs to rewrite the budget and to bring Kate Forbes into his cabinet to save the SNP from a disastrous general election result, according to former Nat Minister Alex Neil. Now, Neil reckoned Shona Robinson's spending plans had gone down like a lead balloon and said Labour's message of getting rid of the Tories ahead of the UK poll was cutting through on the doorstep. Now, we all know Alex Neil is not a stupid man. He's an economist. He understands how the economy works. He was pro-salmon. He was very, great supporter of salmon. So he understands. He's on the other side of the aisle as far as the SNP are concerned. Now, obviously, still don't agree with his politics regarding independence and that. But the guy is not an idiot. He's one of the few that's actually got a bit of a brain in his head. And he retired a couple of years ago, I think, 2021. I think he retired before the last election because he's just basically saying he got too old and wanted to spend the remaining years with his family. I respect that. There's a lot to respect about the man. Most of all, I think, now correct me in the comments, I'm pretty sure, wasn't he the only senior SNP to come out and admit he voted for Brexit? I seem to remember that was Alex Neil. I'm sure that was Alex Neil. And so, he's someone who's willing to stand up for his beliefs. So, you can give him that view. Anyway, Mr. Neil, who served in the cabinets of both Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon, has been a critic of Mr. Yousaf over the past year. Join the club. There's lots of them, even within the SNP. It was his comments that sparked a furious row over why the now First Minister missed a key vote on single-sex marriage back in 2014. That's right, yes, I remember this. Because when Yousaf made the I've got to leave the building, I've got an appointment elsewhere. He couldn't be seen to vote for it because the guys down at the mosque wouldn't like it, and he couldn't vote against it because it was party policy and he'd have to resign. So he didn't vote at all and made the excuse and left the building. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Actually, thinking about Neil, didn't he have a problem with Fergus Ewing? Maybe. I think he had a problem. He couldn't work under Fergus Ewing. He didn't want to work with Fergus Ewing, or him and Fergus Ewing don't see eye to eye. Which is odd now that he's sort of saying do very well with Kate Forbes, when Kate Forbes and Fergus Ewing are so closely aligned. But hey, maybe he's just looking at the realism of it and letting bygones be bygones, or just not allowing personal differences to interfere in the political message. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure he didn't like Fergus Ewing, or Fergus Ewing didn't like him. Anyway, this is ancient history, isn't it? He says, I think they should have been looking at other sources of money, talking about the budget. He says, I think they should have been looking at other sources of money in the budget, and some of the cuts are very damaging, especially to the likes of mental health and housing, particularly those two. As I mentioned, she seems to be going after the vulnerable rather than after the strong for some reason. And he's saying, secondly, he, meaning Humza Yousaf, needs to make changes in the cabinet and get some stronger characters in, starting with Kate Forbes. Make her Deputy First Minister and Finance Secretary. Excuse me. And basically throw Shona Robinson to the wolves, although she probably wouldn't recognise it. Put her in charge of crayons. It's about her limit. But don't give her the purple ones, though. She eats them. He says, I think the SNP can turn this around if they do the right things. But Humza Yousaf still hasn't earned his stripes as far as the Scottish people are concerned. Well, the trouble is people, both within and without the party, know exactly what Humza Yousaf is. He's a failure. He's an extremist and he's a failure. And he doesn't really have the heart of Scotland, foremost in his mind. He works for an entirely different, much smaller bunch of people, doesn't he? Where he seems to give all of Scotland's money, and where he keeps, let's build one of these, let's build one of them. Let's build a meeting house, a gang house for all his gang. And goes around, and concentrates on one particular section of society rather than the whole of society. And people see it and they don't like it. And that's divisive. He doesn't represent everyone. He's supposed to be the First Minister of Scotland, and he's not even the First Minister of people who want independence. He's the First Minister of a small group. Anyway, unless he bucks up soon, says Neil, he says it will be difficult for the SNP to hold on to its position. I do believe at this stage all is not lost, far from it. Miss Forbes is widely recognised to be positioning herself for a second tilt at the SNP leadership if Mr Yousaf steps down this year, or whether she actually forces a vote she could force this. And of course, if he loses the election big time like we think, then he's got to go. And she will be standing there, Messiah-like, upright, flame in hand, representing the only hope that the SNP have as the bodies are laying there after the election. That Friday morning, she will be the only hope the SNP have. The Friday after the election, when it has been an absolute decimation, there will be bodies everywhere. And they'll all look to Kate to come in and save the party. By then, of course, it will be far too late, because having lost all those seats at Westminster, they're getting all that funding removed. And they'll go bankrupt. If they want to save the party, they've got to do it now. And Humza's got to go. Anyway, Mr. Neil added, I think the SNP is under enormous pressure on the doorstep. They're talking about independent supporters, not big fans of Starmer. He says, yet in their view, the SNP has abandoned any pretence at trying to get independence anytime soon. And so they're all voting Labour, because if we're not going to get independence, they want rid of the Tories. The message is cutting through, even among strong independent supporters. The new priority is to get rid of the Tories, as they don't see any progress on independence. And that is basically the problem they've got. They've got nowhere else to go. And so they've got to get her in. Be fun, won't it? Coming up. So, will the Ken doll of Scottish politics finally grow a pair and beg Kate Forbes to come in, make her deputy leader, make her finance secretary and get her to do the budget? Or will he just bottle it? And even if he does ask her, will she accept? Or will she say, no, there's only one job in politics I want, Humza. I want yours. If you resign, I will save the party. That's the option. Tell people the only way you can save the SNP, to stop them getting completely slaughtered at the next general election, is to boot Humza Yousaf out and put Kate Forbes in. Interesting times we live in, isn't it? Interesting times. Let's see what happens over the next few weeks. And you can make sure you don't miss it by hitting that subscribe button, ringing that bell, leaving a like, leaving a comment, and please stay tuned. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Bye.